It started with a flicker, not in the sky or anything dramatic, just the lights in the hallway of my apartment building. They buzzed out like dying fireflies while I stood there with a grocery bag full of microwavable burritos and instant noodles, wondering if I should take the stairs or wait for the elevator to come back to life. Meh, guess I'll just take the stairs. I live on the edge of Las Vegas, past the Strip and the shitty casinos, where the tourists fade out and the desert creeps back in. My name's Chris Marquez. I work as a software developer for a dating app you have more than likely heard about. It's good money, and I've always loved my city, regardless of all the things to despise. As I'm walking up the stairs, I look over through the window, north. The sky appeared gray. The gray looked like it was barreling towards us. I rushed into my apartment, throwing the bag of burritos and noodles onto my couch. I tried my best to find something that could be working. A radio I had in my camping bag, the one with a crank to keep it going. I rushed to my closet and grabbed it. The air was starting to have a weird taste to it. I turn it on and hear something unimaginable. Seek personal protection equipment, protect your lungs. Yellowstone has erupted. This was repeating on the radio. Is this really it? I rush into my bathroom. The water still works. I fill the bathtub and do the same with sink while closing its drain off. I run around the house like a madman, plugging sinks and turning them on, just to rush back to the sinks and bath to turn them off when they are full. Is this really it? I asked myself again. Ash drifted in slow waves like gray snow. At first it was just annoying, ruining car paint, choking up AC units, giving people pretty nasty coughs. A lot of people wore protective masks like painter masks and N95 masks that were duct taped to their faces, sealing the mask off. People tried putting extra filters on the air intakes of their cars as they started to break down from the crap in the air getting into the engine. Flights, power grids. The sun disappeared behind a permanent curtain ash. Days blurred into a weird, dim twilight. The twilight had almost a lavender mystique to it, but left a grayish tint upon everything underneath it. Everyone called it the ash light. Days went past, and somehow people managed to remain calm and stay united. Then the real problem started. Food became scarce. Trucks stopped coming in regularly. Prices spiked. Water rationing got stricter. You could almost feel the tension like static. People stopped looking at each other in public. Coughing became a social offense. And boy, there was a lot of coughing. The ash did not play kindly to people. A lot of people couldn't get a mask before doing too much damage to themselves. So many people had horse-like coughs. Could also be a result of not sealing the mask if they only had a N95-styled mask. The ones who duct taped their mask's edges were not making horrible-sounding coughs that made you cringe. By week 6, someone got stabbed over a loaf of bread at the Smiths on Flamingo. The next day, an elderly couple dead due to ash inhalation. By 3 days after that, most of the elderly population in the city was either in life-threatening condition or worse. The ash had gotten to them. I stayed inside more. My roommate bailed, left a note saying he was headed to Colorado to meet up with family. I thought this was stupid, as it was far closer to Yellowstone. He insisted that it didn't matter, and that the ash has already fallen, though, whenever I asked him about his plan. Weird to see him go without saying anything. Probably knew I would try to stop him like I normally do and reason with him about it. I didn't have family outside of town. My parents died years back. No siblings. I had a couple friends, but even that started to fade. People either shut down or turned into survivalists overnight. One guy in my building, Daryl, went full prepper. Barred his door, wore military camo in the hallways, muttered slurs about looters and thieves while walking with a pistol, M9 Beretta on his hip. They hit downtown first. The desperate ones, that is. The looters. The casinos tried to stay open, but eventually they became targets. Not for money. For power, food, space. I remember watching live footage on my phone of the Bellagio in flames, fountains turned off, smoke swallowing neon. We had blackouts constantly, no air conditioning. In Vegas, that's usually a death sentence in summer. But with the ash blocking the sun, the temperature dropped, drastically. Within 2 months of the eruption, Vegas was averaging 40 degrees in the daytime. Nights got below freezing. It was brutal. But I guess I enjoyed the lack of heat. Days turned into weeks. I bundled up and rationed my food, ate once a day, drank slowly from the bathtub I filled when the water first started acting up. I read books I never thought I'd get through, wore 2 hoodies at once, and taped my windows to keep the cold out. I stopped checking Instagram. There was nothing left to post. One morning, I woke up to shouting outside. I peeked out and saw Daryl dragging a guy down the stairs by the ankle. The dude was bleeding, half conscious. Daryl had caught him trying to break into his apartment. I didn't get involved. None of us did. At least at this point, power was coming back on, in and out. But I could get on the internet temporarily sometimes. A week later, I left my building for the first time in days. I had to. I was down to 1 burrito and a bottle of hot sauce. The grocery store had been cleaned out weeks earlier, but I heard rumors from a guy online. A group was organizing trades out by the old container park. It felt like walking through a dream. The city was ghosted. Ash blew in the air like pollen, and everything looked bleached. Stray dogs roamed in packs. Some buildings were boarded up, others just smashed open. I passed a burned-out Tesla with, "We deserve this," spray-painted across it. Weird symbols and things drawn in the ash that hangs onto the roads and sidewalks. Street signs have bullet holes through them. I didn't understand it was this bad out here, but oddly enough, I still saw some couples walking past, masked up and walking in a hurry. It wasn't all-out hell, I guess, just a mix of disparity and some kind of hope for something. What, though? Watching people scurry about in ash, not even willing to make eye contact, is very strange. Towards the container park a few blocks away, I watched a man who seemed drunk, walking towards another man on the sidewalk. The guy on the sidewalk pulled a gun and racked it. Didn't even say a word. The drunk guy slipped on the ash buildup on the road as he stumbled away, frightened. Picked himself up and halfway ran, halfway stumbled away. The guy with the gun held it steady towards the drunk. But his eyes, followed by his head, turned to me and met my gaze with sheer murderous intent. I start running towards the container park at this point. I make it there, out of breath underneath my mask. A few people with rifles on the outer edge of the park approach me and pat me down, ask me what my intentions are. Only here to trade or buy, I told them as they let me in. The container park was half standing. A couple vendors stood around barrel fires, masked up, eyes twitching. I traded my last pack of AA batteries for a sack of rice and 3 protein bars. Some guy offered me a knife for my jacket. I passed. I needed the jacket. On the other hand, though, I did also get a Twinkie from someone in exchange for a smaller Bic lighter. I don't know how to explain it, but that was simply a trade worth making. Civil unrest. That was the word reporters used before the networks went silent. Again. What it really meant was no one trusted anyone anymore. Cops either left or joined gangs. The military came through once, Humvees and smoke grenades, martial law, but they didn't stay. Not enough resources to protect us all. One night, I saw a family from the apartment next door drive off. Left a note on my door. "Heading to Utah. Hope you make it." I didn't follow. The roads were jammed or cracked. Gas was almost impossible to find. And besides, I didn't know where I'd go. Vegas was home, even if it was falling apart. There was still something holding me here. Maybe stubbornness. Maybe the illusion of control. Weeks turned into months. The sky stayed the same. A permanent twilight. I started writing stuff down, not for anyone, just to keep my mind sharp. I remembered things I used to love. Cheap tacos on Charleston, Red Rock hikes, late-night blackjack with friends. They felt like scenes from someone else's life. But I survived. Eventually, there were signs of hope. A truck came through from Arizona, said parts of Phoenix were rebuilding, claimed the ash was thinning, that maybe this wasn't the end, just a long, brutal intermission. I don't know if that's true, but I kept the rice going as long as I could and enjoyed every bite of that Twinkie the night I brought myself to eat it. I started a little rooftop garden with old Tupperware and ash-scraped soil, found a solar charger for my Kindle. I kept breathing, kept walking. Some nights, I thought I saw stars trying to peek through the gray. And that was enough. Those small speckles of stars barely peeking through the hazy ash is all I need to know we can still make it, with time.
My name's James, 27, and if you'd asked me a year ago what I thought the end of the world would feel like, I probably would have joked about zombies or nukes. Not this. Not the creeping dread of watching your country bleed from the inside out. Not the buzz of constant alerts. The shaking hands at the gas pump. The grocery store shelves stripped bare. I live, or lived, in Charlotte, North Carolina. A two-bedroom apartment just outside the city. My roommate, Darren, worked IT for a fintech company downtown. We weren't close, not really. Just two guys who split rent and tolerated each other. He was quiet, liked Warhammer minis, and drank oat milk. I worked construction until I busted my ankle, then picked up delivery work. We both ignored the news for as long as we could. The war started overseas. Some Eastern European border dispute turned proxy conflict, turned escalation. Then came the first nuke. Tactical, small yield, blamed on a rogue state. Retaliation followed. Then, alliances shattered. The U.S. got involved. Then came the attacks. The first one was in Boston, a coordinated bombing at a transportation hub. 3 days later, Chicago. Then Austin. Charlotte was hit next. Our city. It was a Tuesday. I was out doing a grocery run. Darren had texted me earlier that morning. "Hey man, if you go out today, grab more coffee. Thanks." I was in line when I heard the sirens. At first, I thought it was just another drill. Then came the rumble. Not thunder, not an earthquake. A low, distant roar. The lights flickered. My phone lit up with an emergency alert. Immediate shelter warning, stay indoors. Potential terrorist attack. I dropped the bag, ran to the truck. From the highway, I could see smoke rising over the city. Not one column, multiple. Dark, rising clouds like fingers reaching into the sky. My hands shook the whole drive back. When I got home, Darren was already packing. His hands were fast, precise. Backpack open, rows of energy bars, water filters, flashlight, even iodine pills. I stood there, stunned. "You okay?" he asked without looking up. "That was a bomb. In our city." "Multiple," he said. "They're saying one at the federal building, one near South End, and another by the rail line. They've cut power to half the grid. No word on who did it yet, but it's coordinated." "Jesus. We should go." I blinked. "Go where?" He zipped his bag. "Someplace rural. Off-grid. I have an uncle's cabin in the Blue Ridge. Haven't been in years. It's not much, but it's defensible." "You're serious?" He looked me in the eyes for the first time. "Very." I didn't even pack. Not really. Just grabbed what I had. Boots, jacket, some cash, my Glock 19, 2 boxes of ammo, and a weather radio my dad gave me years ago. I tossed them into my old Chevy and followed Darren out of the city. That drive was hell. Highways jammed, people running, cars abandoned. We took back roads, often doubling back when routes were blocked or checkpoints sprang up. Some were military, others weren't. A few guys with rifles and armbands stopped us outside Lincolnton, checking for foreign operatives, they claimed. They tore through my truck bed, found nothing, let us go. Darren didn't speak the whole time, until we stopped at a gas station just before dusk. I was refueling, hands shaking from adrenaline. "You sure this place exists?" "This cabin?" He was leaning against the hood, eyes scanning the tree line. Yeah, last I heard, it's off Route 88, near the state line. And what if it's gone? He didn't answer, just nodded at the gas pump. Top it off. We won't get another chance. That night we made it to the cabin. It was real. Dusty, old, with a chimney half collapsed, but it was there. No power. A hand pump well out back. Enough space to breathe. We spent the first 2 days cleaning, securing, figuring out our situation. The radio told us enough. The country was fracturing. Multiple attacks in different cities. Foreign-backed terror cells. Infrastructure down. The president off the air. Martial law declared in several regions. Some states had closed borders. Supply chains were gone. Civil unrest wasn't coming. It was already here. We had 2 weeks' worth of canned food between us. Darren had the gear, solar battery packs, a camp stove, tarps, water purifiers. I had tools and guns. We made a plan. Ration, gather intel, venture out when absolutely necessary. On day 5, we met others. A man and a woman, armed, showed up at the edge of the property. Claimed to be from the next ridge over. They said they were checking on neighbors. Darren didn't trust them. I did. I gave them a few cans. Later that night, we found footprints around the cabin. Darren was furious. You can't be generous now. That's over. They're people. They're threats. We argued, hard. I accused him of turning cold. He accused me of being naive. We didn't speak for a full day. A week later, a nearby town went up in flames. We saw the smoke, heard the gunfire. I wanted to go check it out. Darren didn't. We go down there, we die. We need supplies. We need to know what's happening. We don't need to be heroes. I went anyway. The town was chaos. Empty stores, burned homes, a dead man in the middle of the street. I found a woman hiding with her kid in the back of a pharmacy. Gave her half of what I had. When I got back, Darren was packing. I can't stay with someone who plays cowboy, he said. You're going to get me killed. I begged him to stay, promised I'd be smarter. He stared at me a long while, then dropped the pack. One more stunt, he said, and I'm gone. We lasted another month, just barely. We scavenged, bartered with others, avoided roads. One night we were surrounded by wolves. Another night, men with flashlights passed within yards of our cabin, searching. We fought. We laughed. Once we got drunk on expired rum and played cards till dawn. We weren't friends before. Now I'd take a bullet for him. I don't know how long we'll survive. The country is still unraveling. But this cabin, this ridge, it's home now. And Darren? He's the closest thing I've got to a brother.
My name is Colby, 37 years old. I live alone in a rusted trailer on the edge of the Oklahoma Panhandle. Not by choice, just where I ended up after the divorce and the layoff. I fix wind turbines when I can get the work. The rest of the time, I stay quiet, hunt when the season's good, and listen to the radio. You could call me a prepper, sure, but don't get the wrong idea. I don't have a bunker or pallets of freeze-dried stroganoff. I've got a few drums of water, a stockpile of canned beans, and an old shotgun my dad left me. Enough to ride out a tornado. Not the apocalypse. But when the sky cracked open and something foreign came down burning through the clouds, I knew I'd never been more right to prepare, even if I hadn't prepared enough. It hit near Amarillo, middle of the night. Woke me with a low rumble like thunder in reverse. My radio lit up an hour later. Reports of a massive meteor impact, no casualties. Then reports of sickness. Then the silence. I found it strange how the reports of a strange sickness came just as soon as the reports of the meteor. My neighbor thought I was crazy for making the connection. It started with nosebleeds, then rashes, then fevers that cooked people from the inside out. They called it the fire plague. By day 3, Amarillo was burning. I locked my gate, sealed my windows, and turned off every light. My supplies would last maybe a month, 2 if I rationed. I stopped answering calls from friends and family, not because I didn't care, because I didn't want to hear what I couldn't help. By week 1, the internet was down, power was spotty, and the towns turned ugly. The gas station 2 miles down the road was looted. I watched through binoculars as 3 trucks pulled up, masked men hopped out, and started hauling cases of whatever was left. They shot the owner, left his body on the curb. The fire plague spread fast. Too fast. Some said it wasn't natural, that it wasn't a meteor at all, just the delivery method, that what came in that rock was alive, that it wanted hosts. I didn't believe in aliens, still don't, but I saw things that didn't make sense. A deer walked into my property on the 12th night, blood dripping from its mouth, eyes pure black. It stared at me, just stared, then turned and walked straight into my pond. Drowned itself. I burned the carcass. By day 15, the nearby town of Vega was silent. No lights, no movement, just a black smudge of rot on the horizon. I needed supplies. I ventured out, wearing gloves, a respirator, full coveralls. The road was cracked, littered with wrecks. I drove my truck into town with the headlights off, parked 3 blocks from the general store, went in through the back. Inside, the shelves were stripped, but I found some vitamins, rubbing alcohol, a few cans. It felt like stealing from ghosts. Then I heard the cough. A man was lying in the storeroom, skin gray, eyes bleeding. He reached for me. "It's in the air," he rasped, "but it thinks, it waits." I ran. Back at my trailer, I stripped and burned the clothes, scrubbed myself raw, waited 3 days, no symptoms, not yet. By the 3rd week, I saw more people on the move, some just passing through, waving from overloaded pickups. Others came close, trying to talk their way onto my land. One guy had a kid, said they were clean. I wanted to help. But when the kid looked up, his gums were black. I told them to go. They came back that night. They tried to take the trailer, shot out a window. I waited inside with my shotgun. When they came through the door, I fired twice. One scream, then silence. I found the kid still breathing, but just barely. I couldn't finish it. I couldn't save him either. So I walked him out past the gate, laid him under a tree, and sat until the sun came up. Week 4. I'm running out of food. The water barrel's got a crack. The air smells wrong, sweet, like rotting flowers. My skin itches constantly, but I haven't bled. Not yet. The sky looks different now. Some nights I see flickers, like stars moving against the current, like something is watching. Maybe the sickness isn't a disease. Maybe it's a message, or a seed. I've heard whispers on the shortwave, other survivors. Some say they're headed west, others say it's worse in California. One voice, female, calm, broadcasts every night from somewhere near Denver. "You are not alone. There is still a place. We are holding the line. Come if you can, but come clean." I might go. I don't know. I've lasted this long, but I'm tired. The kind of tired that's deeper than sleep. I've started hearing things at night. Knocking. Not on the door. On the walls. Tapping, like fingers drumming. I go outside and there's nothing there. But the pond is darker. And the frogs have stopped singing. Whatever came down wasn't just a rock. And the sickness it brought isn't just a disease. It's a beginning. And I think it wants more than our bodies.
My name is Tyler. I'm 31, live alone in a little rental house on the outskirts of Orlando. Used to work maintenance at Universal Studios before they laid a bunch of us off. Now I do gig stuff, DoorDash, handyman work, whatever pays. Florida's hot, always has been, but over the last year something's been different. Wetter, heavier, more frequent storms. And then one day, it started. Water levels creeping up, slow, steady, and unforgiving. The news said it was some kind of cascade event. Polar melt acceleration, shifts in ocean current behavior, maybe volcanic disruption under the Antarctic shelf, depending on which scientist you asked. Point is, they couldn't stop it, and it wasn't a wall of water. It was like the world was sinking an inch at a time. It began in the low-lying areas. The Everglades flooded first. Then parts of Miami were underwater permanently. By the time canals started to overflow in my neighborhood, people got scared. But nobody panicked yet. Not really. Not until the third week. It was a Wednesday when I made the call to leave. The water was up to the steps of my house by then. Still dry inside, but my street was a canal. I had a kayak tied to the mailbox post. That's not normal. My phone buzzed with a message from my sister. "You've got to get out. Come to Colorado. We've got room. We're on high ground." So I packed up. I had a 2010 Toyota Tacoma. Not the prettiest thing, but reliable. I filled it with gas, loaded supplies in the bed, canned food, bottled water, camping gear, clothes, a couple jugs of fuel. I strapped the kayak to the roof, took my old .38 revolver too. Not that I expected trouble, but it felt stupid not to. The plan: drive northwest through Florida, skirt the flooded zones, hit I-75, then cut across Alabama and up into Tennessee, maybe Arkansas, then to Colorado Springs, where my sister and her family lived. I had maps printed, real ones. GPS was already sketchy from rolling blackouts and busted towers. The first leg of the trip went surprisingly smooth. I drove slowly through standing water as I left my neighborhood. Gators floated lazily through what used to be front lawns. I saw a pontoon boat beached on someone's roof. The state was half abandoned. Not totally. Some people stayed, built weird stilt walkways, makeshift bridges, lived in attic spaces like tree houses. But most folks who could leave already had. The ones left behind either couldn't afford to run or thought the water would stop. By the time I hit Ocala, the water was deeper, some roads impassable. I used the kayak twice to ferry supplies over flooded sections. Left the truck for a few hours once, came back and found a guy had broken in. He was dead when I got there. Looked like someone else had gotten to him first. No cops, no cleanup, just decay and silence. In Lake City, I refueled at a gas station with a generator. The clerk was this older woman, shotgun behind the counter, eyes like granite. "You headed north?" she asked. "Colorado." "I have family there," I responded. "Better move fast. Water's moving quicker every day." "Component placement," she told me rather blankly, as if she has heard it a ton of times. She wasn't wrong. In Georgia, it got worse. Way worse. I crossed into the state line near Valdosta and saw whole fields turn to shallow seas, barns like islands, horses on high ground. And the water wasn't the only thing spreading. Panic was creeping too. There were more people on the road now, less structure, less order. I stopped helping people. Not because I didn't care, because I didn't trust them. One guy flagged me down, said his wife was in labor. When I hesitated, 3 more guys came out from behind a truck, all armed. I drove through their blockade, tore up my bumper, but made it. My heart didn't slow down for an hour. I camped in the truck bed most nights, parked on overpasses or high ridges. Some nights I heard gunfire, sometimes screams, and always, the sound of moving water. By the time I got near Macon, Georgia, the flood maps were worthless. Places that were supposed to be dry were underwater. Rivers had turned highways into canals. I started seeing signs scrawled in spray paint. "Turn back. No fuel past here. Safe zone, North Athens." I didn't head to the safe zone. I didn't believe in them anymore. One morning I woke up to the truck shaking. Thought it was an earthquake. But no, it was a mass of water ripping through the valley below, pushing cars like toys. I stood on the overpass for an hour, just watching it move, endless and gray. I had maybe 100 miles to the edge of Georgia, but the land kept sloping down, and the water kept rising. I was driving west, trying to find higher ground, when the highway disappeared under a new inland sea. It looked almost brand new, the water rushing by like a large river sweeping the highway. I could make out the other side of this new water runoff, but it was miles away. That's a problem. The ocean's new tendril was standing directly in the way of me and my family in Colorado. I backtracked, tried a different route, but the detour was jammed with traffic. People abandoning cars, fights broke out. I tried going around through a dirt trail, got stuck for hours. Mud sucked the truck down like quicksand. I finally made it free by digging with my hands. That night I slept in the cab of the truck, soaked, shaking. Everything hurt. Morning came red. Sky full of smoke from wildfires to the west. The air tasted like ash and salt. I got the truck moving again. But it felt final. The water was now rising towards the floor of my truck, merely inches below the exit of the exhaust. I drove over abandoned overpasses past drowned towns. I saw rooftops poking through water like gravestones on the bottom sides of hills. I passed a church, mostly engulfed by water, but its cross poking its way above the waves. Then the road dipped. I didn't see it until too late. I hit the gas, praying I could make it through the shallow parts, but the water was deceptive, deep, heavy. The engine died. I opened the door, water flooded in fast, grabbed my bag, climbed to the roof, then onto the kayak that is on top my truck. I untie it from the roof rack below me and scoot off the roof into the water. I paddled for hours, aimless, no land in sight. Eventually, I sat back in the kayak and just drifted. It was silent. Just the creak of plastic, the slap of water against the hull. The world around me was gone. Florida was gone. Georgia was disappearing. And Colorado might as well have been the moon. I closed my eyes. A weird tinge of relief drafted over me. And I let the current take me.
My name is Jordan Ray. I'm 30, single, and I live in a little house I inherited from my dad just outside of Ocala, Florida. When everything collapsed, I was working part-time construction jobs and doing Instacart deliveries in between. The American dream, right? It started the way these things always do. Quiet, creeping. I'd noticed the price of eggs jumping past $8 a dozen at Publix. Then gas hit $6 a gallon, then 9. But that wasn't the scary part. The scary part came when people stopped pretending things would get better. In early August, there were whispers online. Banks aren't solvent, people said. Supply chains are broken. But mainstream media laughed it off, called it transitory. Then on a Monday morning, I went to fill up my tank, and the pumps at every station in town were dead. Not empty, just off. That same day, my debit card stopped working. At first, I blamed the app. Then I tried the ATM. Nothing. The screen showed a system error. I drove over to my local Bank of America branch. It was locked. Handwritten signs on the door said, "Closed until further notice. No cash on premises." There was a line of people outside, angry, scared. One guy tried to kick the glass door in, shouting, "I have money in there! Give me my goddamn money!" The police came and told everyone to go home. But nobody was getting arrested. It was like even the cops knew things were unraveling. That night, I found out the stock market had tanked over 40% in a single day. That part didn't hit me too hard. I didn't own stocks. But I knew what came next. Everything did. By Thursday, stores had been looted across Gainesville, Orlando, Tampa, Walmart, Target, grocery chains. Gone. The National Guard was deployed to assist local law enforcement. That was the phrasing they used. But the reality looked more like lockdown. Martial law was declared Friday morning. They didn't call it that officially. They said it was a temporary stabilization measure. But we weren't stupid. Curfew was from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Roadblocks were set up along Interstate 75. Supply trucks stopped coming. And if you were caught outside after curfew, you didn't get a ticket. You disappeared. People started trading in cash for food, gas, medicine, anything useful. But by the weekend, cash wasn't worth a damn thing. Barter came back fast. I swapped my old generator for 10 cans of soup and 2 cartons of cigarettes, worth their weight in gold now. Gas was more valuable than anything. I had 5 gallons in red plastic jugs and kept them hidden under a tarp in the shed. The power grid was still working in some areas, but flickering. We knew it wouldn't last. The economy wasn't just collapsing, it was imploding, dragging everything down with it. The scariest part was the silence. People stopped going outside. At night, you'd hear gunshots, screams. Then, nothing. I blocked my windows with blackout curtains and pushed the fridge in front of the door. My neighbor Alan, a 62-year-old retired Marine, came over with his Glock one night and said, "We hold the line or we die. Got it?" I nodded. That was it. We became allies. Not friends, but men with a shared understanding. By Monday, the internet was down across most of Florida. No cell service either. The only news came from battery-powered radios. One local station repeated a pre-recorded message over and over. Remain calm. Stay indoors. Ration supplies. Military units will distribute aid soon. Aid never came. Instead, the National Guard rolled through neighborhoods like mine in armored Humvees. We weren't allowed to approach them. One woman tried, just walked up asking for insulin for her kid. They zip-tied her and drove away. We never saw her again. I buried my phone in the backyard, along with the GPS unit from my truck. Alan said anything transmitting could get us noticed. He wasn't paranoid, just experienced. I listened to him more than I listened to the government. On the 10th day, something shifted. I was outside chopping wood when I heard yelling, not far. I ducked behind my truck and peeked through the brush. A mob of about 20 people were walking down the road, shouting and banging on doors. They looked ragged, dirty, desperate. One guy carried a crowbar. Another had a shotgun. They weren't from around here. I'd never seen them before. They kicked in the front door of a vacant house 2 doors down from mine. A single shot rang out and someone screamed. Then, silence. Alan saw it too. That night, he came over and handed me a revolver. 6 shots, he said. Don't miss. If they come for us, we shoot first. I didn't argue. I'd never fired a real gun before, but I didn't want to die on my knees. I kept it loaded and on the table next to my cot. The next few nights were worse. They were moving closer, breaking into houses, dragging people out. We could hear it all, the begging, the gunfire, the horror. Alan and I took turns staying awake. By night 13, Ocala was lawless. There was no turning back by then. Cities had become war zones. The rural areas weren't much safer. People holed up in houses like tombs. Nobody trusted anyone. We were all animals now, starving, paranoid, armed. Food ran out faster than you'd think. I had rice, beans, some canned stuff, but no fresh anything. Water still came from the taps, barely. I filled my bathtub and started filtering it. I didn't dare boil it on a fire. It would draw attention. Then, I made my first kill. It wasn't planned. They came in the night. 2 men. Broke the side window with a brick and crawled in. I was sleeping on the floor, heard the crash, reached for the revolver and fired before I saw a face. The first guy dropped instantly. The second ran. I sat there shaking for what felt like an hour. Alan helped me drag the body out before morning. We didn't talk about it. We never even checked who he was. The broadcast changed on day 16. I caught it on my radio just after dawn. Major cities in Florida, Miami, Jacksonville, Tampa, are being evacuated. Refugee zones are being established in northern counties. If you are able to travel safely, proceed north. Identification and screening checkpoints are mandatory. We didn't believe it for a second. Evacuated meant camps. Camps meant fences. Fences meant you weren't leaving. Alan said we should stay. Moving is suicide, he told me. Roads are clogged. Gangs are hunting. Best case, you end up in a FEMA tent. Worst case, you don't make it out of town. I agreed, for now, but food was running out. Water was dirty. I had 2 batteries left for the radio. No meds, no gas. It was unsustainable. That night, I made a choice. I packed a bag, 2 days of food, a canteen, the revolver, a knife. I left Alan a note. If I don't come back, bury the gun. I left before dawn. The world outside felt dead, not quiet, just emptied of life. I followed side roads north toward Gainesville, avoiding major highways. Every once in a while, I'd pass an abandoned vehicle or see smoke on the horizon. Once, I found a flipped-over delivery truck. Someone had stripped it bare, torn out the seats, the engine, the tires. Nothing left but the metal skeleton. Near Orange Lake, I found a woman hiding under a bridge. Her face was gray. She was barefoot, shivering, barely conscious. I gave her my last protein bar. She looked at me and whispered, "They're eating people." I walked away before she could say more. By sunset, I reached a small neighborhood that looked untouched. Some kind of retirement village with chain-link fences and wind chimes still hanging. I knocked on one door. A man answered with a rifle pointed at my face. He looked old, worn, like death in denim. "I don't want trouble," I said. "Everyone says that," he replied. Then he looked me up and down. "You're not starving yet. Go before you are." I didn't argue. I camped in the woods that night, listening to the wind and the rustle of unseen animals. I didn't sleep much. The next day I turned around. I realized Alan was right. Out here, you weren't surviving. You were running from death with no end. I returned to my house 3 days later. Alan was gone. His door was kicked in. Blood smeared the floor. His shotgun was missing. I buried his dog in the backyard. Found it in the bushes, barely recognizable. Then I sat on my porch and stared at the trees. It was over. Not the collapse that was still happening. I meant the country, the system, the illusion of normal. It was all gone. No government was going to fix this. No election, no plan, no cavalry. We were on our own now. Florida wasn't America anymore. It was a battlefield. And me? I was no longer a man waiting for help. I was just another animal in the ruins. Surviving, alone, waiting for the next knock at the door.